So today we're back on the 48 Ford F250 now. Instead of an F5, it's going to be a F250 or F2 four-wheel drive Cummings swap. So since the last video, we've added new sleigh cylinder, mounted the transmission, clutch, spacer plate, torqued everything to the engine. So I lost. Of course, somebody gives me crap. This fell out and we're moving it around. There we go. Safe again. So anyway, so what we're doing right now is taking a measurement to find 16 1/4 is the center in between the frame. Looking at our angle provider, which is not real accurate right now because I'm on the tail and not actually on the yoke, but it gives me an indication that need to be between 0 and 3. I believe it's at 3 right now. The other issue we have is this is a Ford rear end that is offset. So I have moved it. Move this and show you. This is the cross member that was on the Ford. We're going to reuse it again. I'm going to do a little bit of repair here. Move this. I'm going to put a new plate on here, and then I'll re-drill it to match the bottom of the 5-speed, or excuse me, the 5-speed and the yeah. Okay, brain will kick in any minute now, and transfer case. So it is the mount is mated between the in between the transmission and the transfer case on this housing. You can see it right here, and it is 2 holes on the bottom. It is a complete one. It's in pretty good shape, so we're going to reuse it. So the problem is the Ford rear end is offset. We can make it up in the U-joints. I have moved it over some. I'm not sure if I need to move it anymore. I don't think I want to. The rear ends on Fords run offset, meaning the drive shaft comes out of the transmission dead center on the frame and runs on an angle over to the rear end. Your U-joints will make that up as long as you have the same degree of angles down. So what you want to have is on the top U-joint, if it's turned around and flat, you would do a measurement on that to make sure that your angle is about 0 to 3 degrees, 0 to 3 degrees on which would be this U-joint that would be here in the tail shaft. So what I got to do is I measured the drive shaft, what I'm going to need. So how I did this is I put the drive shaft, which is long, in the back, the tail housing, in tight. I bottomed it out and brought it out 1 inch. Then I took a measurement from the center of this U-joint to the center of that U-joint down there. Now that gives me the total length of the drive shaft. And this is at what they would call non-suspension travel, I believe is the right word for this. So what we've done is we've allowed the inch here. So if you're loading stuff in your truck or the rear end is going up and down with passengers going in, it doesn't bottom out, but allows, let's see what we got for travel. So we have 5 3/4, so we'd have 4 3/4 inches worth of travel. So let me do that again, make sure I'm correct. 5 3/4, so we would have 4 3/4 inch of travel before the dry shaft would fall out of the transfer case. I don't believe we'll ever need that. Now, if you're struggling with pitch on the rear end or the angle down to the angle of the rear end on the truck, there's a couple different ways you can do this. If you're building your cross member, which I have one that's already built, and if it is too deep and does not give me the come up tight against the bottom of the transfer case or the transmission mount and hold it up where I need, I can build a shim to go in there to do that. Or if it is too thick and is not allowing me the 1 to 3 down on it, I don't care if we're down to 0 off the back of that. I can cut these bolts and I can space this down to give me what I need. And the same thing on the rear end. If you're already working on a vehicle that the transmission's already in place and you go to do the rear end and all of a sudden you put the rear end in and you're out of place on the rear end, you can loosen your U-bolts, loosen them up, jack your frame up off the ground, leave your wheels hanging, loosen it up where you can rotate your rear end either down or up to get to the ultimate, what you need for the ultimate degree of angle for your rear end. So I probably confused everybody on that, but I have. This is how I set the rat rod up and the 67 Ford, actually the 52 Ford too. Okay, so on the dry shaft, let's get back to the angle on the dry shaft. Sorry if I'm bouncing around here, just bear with me. So what I'm going to do to make sure that my dry shaft is completely in the right angle of what I need out of the back of the transfer case, I measured that out to, this would be the dead center of that U-joint at 49 1/4 inches. I measured from the center of this back to the weld. It is 2 1/16. So I came back here from this mark, 2 1/16, and this is the cut line right here. So once I take this out, cut all around it with a grinder, just barely break the surface all the way around, keep going slowly. You cut down through the outer shaft in the weld, you will get to the slip. There is a slip yoke on this that will extend in about here. So you want to cut it very gently all the way around and separate it. Take this off, put this in your chop saw with a thin blade. I would say if I'm going to redo these in Sharpie, so it's a fine point, but I would cut on the outside of this side with your saw blade, because your saw blade is going to be about a 1/16 of an inch, and you will end up just about where you need to be here. I wouldn't cut it with a Sawzall. I would take it to somebody that has a chop saw and go at it slowly, get it level, support your shaft, check it with a right here, like a little bullet or whatever they call them, a little bullet to make sure you're level. So when you cut, you're cutting even all the way around. Now, what we're going to do when I'm done with that, I will clean this end up that I've cut off, clean the welds up, I will tap it in nice and flat. It'll stay in there without being welded, and this will allow me to put the rear end, dry shaft, and front in place, and allow me to check my angle coming out of the rear end to make sure that I have not too much of a pinch on my U-joints. Then what I'll do is I will jack the rear end up so it's free floating, just enough off the ground so the wheels can spin, and I will turn the dry shaft so it is flat. Put a little piece of steel right across here, measure my angle here, measure my angle there. So some real important that you follow this step. So wherever this yoke is facing, when I cut this one, the yoke has to be in the same position. See how they are? The ears are in the same position. So what I will do is I will take a square and I will run the line right up past here on both sides. And then I will check it before I ever weld it. I'm probably not going to weld it. This is my son's truck. If it was mine, I would weld it. If you ever follow Jonathan W., he does a very good explanation on how he does it. I have done it the same way, and I've actually done it not the same way where we use a couple 2x6s so you can roll the shaft to get it nice and level. As long as your cuts are good and everything's nice and flush where it's not out of whack, you just tack it. Put it on there and try it to see if there's any wobbles. If there's no wobbles, you can go back and run a bead weld on it. But if you are near a facility that has a lathe, they put in the lathe and weld it on the lathe for you. So it is perfectly straight. Probably what we'll do. But I'll get it ready to be welded and then let them do the welding on it, more than likely. Same with the front shaft. A little more angle on the front shaft because the Ford rear end is farther over for your yoke than this. It's okay to run that at an angle. This truck will not be running in high-speed four-wheel drive anyway. Okay, so that's that. Bring it back in a few minutes and I'll talk about the front motor mounts. Have a great day. Thanks for subscribing, liking these videos. Give us the thumbs up so more people will watch our videos. Appreciate it. Have a great day.